Hello, everyone. On today's podcast episode, I'm going to talk about infinity and finite again, duality. So, the duality of finite and infinite. I think I didn't explain it properly, in previous episodes. So, I'm going to go over it again. And for those who've, listening to my podcast for the first time, let me tell you what duality is. We live in a world of duality. That means we live in a world where there's always equal and opposites. There are always two sides to an argument. There's the left, and then if there's a left side, there must be a right side, which is equal and opposite. For there to be a left, there has to be a right. For there to be a before, there has to be an after. For there to be an up, there has to be a down, right? These are examples of duality. For there to be a large, there has to be a small. For there to be a positive, there has to be negative. For male, there's female, right? For far, there's near, right? Or close. For movement, the equal and opposite of movement is non-movement, right? So this world is a world of duality. And the strange part about duality is that left and right, are two sides of the same magnet, right? It means they are one. They're not separate. One creates the other, and the other creates one. And this is how I explain it. And all of them work the same way, in the same, they follow the same pattern. Something that moves only moves relative to something that's not moving, right? Something is only considered moving if there's a reference point. The reference point is what? Something that's not moving. Yes, you can say the reference point is something that's moving slow. But the truth is, when something is moving slow, right? And something is moving fast, from the point of view of the thing that's going fast, the thing that's going slow is standing still. It means it's not moving. So in order for something to move, something else must be standing still. If there's nothing else around something that's moving, then it's no longer considered moving. There's no longer the word, the meaning of movement no longer makes sense. So let me explain existence and non-existence again. Because existence and non-existence follow the same pattern. For us to know we exist, right? We need a reference point. And that reference point is something that doesn't exist. Non-existence, right? Without non-existence, there's no way for us to tell that we exist. We don't exist. That's the duality of existence. If there's no reference point, the word existence no longer makes any logical sense. You understand what I'm saying? For left to exist, right? Right must also exist. Without a reference point of right, the word left no longer makes sense. Without a reference point of large, the word small no longer makes sense. Without the reference point of positive, the word negative doesn't make any logical sense. That's how duality works. Positive and negative come together as one. They exist simultaneously as one. Without one, there is no other. Without existence, non-existence makes no logical sense. Without non-existence, existence makes no logical sense. Existence does not exist. So we exist because from our reference point, we exist. Because we exist, things that are not us, that are not like us, do not exist from our point of view. That's what non-existence is. It is something that's not us. But just because it's not us does not mean it doesn't exist. It just means that it's not us. And because it's not us, we assume that it doesn't exist. That's how non-existence works. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's that it's just not us. It doesn't behave like we behave. It doesn't have the same property that we have, the same existential property that we have. And because it doesn't have the same property that we have, we say it doesn't exist, but that's only from our point of view. From a different point of view, from the point of view of something that's non-existent, from the point of view of something that doesn't exist, we are the ones that doesn't exist. We are the ones that don't exist. Why? Because we're not made up of the same thing. We're equal and opposites. Just like positive and negative are equal and opposites, we are equal and opposites. Because we are equal and opposites, we don't exist to each other. Something that doesn't exist exists, but only in its own way. Because it exists in its own way, we don't exist in its eyes. From the reference point of something that doesn't exist, we are the ones that don't exist. It is the one that exists, and we are the ones that don't exist. That's how duality works. Something that's far, right? From the point of view of something that's far, it is the thing that's near, right? If you stand far away from me, right? And I stand far away from you, right? This is how non-existence works. From my reference point, you are the object that's far away. I am the object that's near. But from your reference point, it's the equal and opposite. You are the object that's near. I am the object that's far away. That's how existence and non-existence work. It is all perspective. You, the object that's far away, is non-existent. Right? From your reference point, you exist. But from my reference point, you don't exist. From your reference point, I am the one that doesn't exist. I am the one that doesn't exist. You are the one that exists. Perspective determines how life works. So just because I believe you don't exist, does that mean you don't exist? No. It just means we're not the same. We're equal and opposites. That's how life works. So let's go back to infinity and finite. Let me give you an example of what I wanted to explain how infinity and finite works. So let me explain it to you. I've said in many episodes before, from 0 to 1, they're infinite numbers, right? But our minds, the human mind is finite. Because our minds are finite, right? We can only understand so much. Because we can only understand so much, the infinity between 0 and 1, we don't count it as infinity. We ignore all the infinities between 0 and 1 and create arbitrary numbers, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, all the way to 0.9. Then we add another 0.1, you get 1. So between 0.1 and 0, there's 0.1. Between 0.1 and 0, there's 0, 0.001, 0.0001, 0.000001. It just goes on infinitely. Yet, we ignore all the infinities between these numbers and just count 0, 0.1, 0.2, all the way to 0.9. We ignore the infinities in between the numbers, right? In order to get to 1, there are infinite points. There are infinite numbers in between 0 and 1. But because our minds, how long will it take us to count to infinity? It takes way too long, right? It's infinity. You'll count to the day you die, and you'll never get to infinity. You never get to the end of infinity. Because of that, we have to what? Take shortcuts. 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then 1. We take shortcuts because we live a short, finite life. Most of us can only live to like 60 years old at most, right? We don't have infinity. We don't have an infinite number of time to count all these infinities. Because we don't have an infinite number of time to count all these infinities, we have to take shortcuts. 0, 0.1, etc. But yet, 0, infinity, what that shows you is that all these infinite numbers, right, create 1. Because between 0 and 1, they're infinite numbers. So infinite numbers create 1, right? And 1 creates infinite numbers, right? Because from 0.1, from 0 to 0 to 1, that's 1, right? If you add another 1, that's 2. You add another 1, that's 3. So 1 added to itself infinitely, creates infinity. So I want to give you a different example to help you understand what that means. If infinity creates 1, 1 creates infinity. Infinity and 1 are what? Two sides of the same coin, right? The finite and the infinite are two sides of the same coin. This is why the number 0 is, has the, we use the circle to indicate 0. 0 is a circle, right? 0 represents infinity. So 0 and nothing, which is also finite, nothing and 0 are 1. So 0 and infinity are the same thing. Existence and non-existence are the same thing. They are 1, right? So you may think this only exists in numbers. This example only counts for numbers, right? When it comes to real life, there's no real life application for that, for that scenario where many creates 1. Guess what? Your body is composed of many cells. All these cells create one body. So many creates 1, 1 creates many. How does 1 create many? 1 human, 2 humans, 3 humans, 4 humans, 5 humans, and then you have all these billions of humans. So all these cells create one body, and then that one body creates all these humans. So, infinity creates 1, 1 creates infinity. Let me give you another example of that. Let's make this a bit, more complicated. Your body is composed of cells, right? That's many, but you won't call that infinite. It's just many cells. If you take all your cells together, right, you can count them. But let me show you how infinity works. Your body is made up of many cells, right? All these cells are made up of what? Many atoms. All these atoms are made up of what? Many electrons, protons, and neutrons. All these protons and neutrons and electrons are made up of what? Many subatomic particles. All these subatomic particles are made up of what? Even more particles that are smaller than them. And then more, the more you zoom in on an atom, right? The more you find particles. And this goes on infinitely. Meaning the number of particles, the type of particles you find, you always find particles, but they just get smaller and smaller and smaller. Because the world is infinite. Meaning there's infinite dimensions, there's infinity to small, meaning there's always something bigger and there's always something smaller, and it goes on infinitely. So your one body is composed of infinite, just one atom alone has what? Infinite particles. 1 creates 1, 1 forms 1, and then when you zoom in, you realize that the particle, like an atom, is composed of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And when you zoom in on the proton, you realize the proton is composed of what? Even smaller particles. When you zoom in on the smaller particles, you realize those particles are composed of what? Even smaller particles. And you zoom in, you can zoom in infinitely. But humans do not, we don't have infinite time to waste zooming in on these small nanoparticles, right? And that's the problem with life. We don't have time. But that explains to you how infinity works. Your body is composed of infinite energy. Infinite. Yet all that energy comes together to create one body. So everything you look around you, you may see it as one, right? One car, one house, one human, one rat, one mouse. But the truth is, the thing that composes that creature is, infinite particles. The infinite particles that create that creature. Yet in your eyes, that creature is only one. That's how duality works. It's based off perspective. From our perspective, you are one. But from the perspective of atoms, you're many. Because in order for you to exist, many atoms must come together to create your body. And that's how life works. Life works off perspective. From one perspective, you exist. From another perspective, you don't exist. From one perspective, you're tall. From another perspective, you're short. From the perspective of a human being, right? You're tall. I mean, you're actually from the perspective of a human. If you're 4'2", right? You're a short person. If you're 4 foot tall, you're a short person, right? From the perspective of a human, if you're 4 foot tall, you're a short person, right? But from the perspective of an ant, a newborn baby is tall. A newborn baby is a giant from the perspective of an ant. So what? A newborn baby is both tall and short at the same time. Is both large and small at the same time. Right? Is both many and one at the same time. From my perspective, right? I'm near. From your perspective, I'm far. From your perspective, you're near. From your perspective, I'm far. Perspective determines how life works. And that's the same way it is for existence and non-existence as well. So when someone tells you that God doesn't exist, it is just his perspective that's skewed. God exists whether he wants to believe he exists or not. Because in this world, existence or non-existence are one. Something only, doesn't exist from your point of view. From another point of view, it exists. Meaning, there's 100% chance. It's 100% that God exists. 100%. Why? Because non-existence is only what? Perspective. It's based off perspective, and perspective alone. Perspective determines what exists and what doesn't. Because from the perspective of your cells, you don't exist. But from your perspective, you exist. From the perspective of these subatomic particles, there's no such thing as a human being. They're only subatomic particles. Only subatomic particles exist. In the world of subatomic particles, only subatomic particles exist. Not you. Yet your body is composed of what? Subatomic particles. But from their perspective, you don't exist. From your perspective, these subatomic particles, if you don't see them with the naked eye, if someone ever tells you that these things exist, you would not believe it. If scientists didn't find their existence and someone told you that they existed, you would never believe that they exist. Right? Right? Many people do not even believe in science. So for the rest of their lives, right, they will never believe that these subatomic particles exist. Because existence is what? Perspective. In the eyes of villagers somewhere in Africa or somewhere in China, right? The cells do not exist because they're too small to be seen with the naked eye. Atoms do not exist because they're too small to be seen with the naked eye. Subatomic particles, these things are, fiction. In their eyes, what we consider fact is fiction. Perspective determines what exists and what doesn't. And perspective is all, it takes, to prove something, that whether something exists or not. So when an atheist tells you that God doesn't exist, an atheist does not truly understand what the word existence even means, or they won't use it that lightly. They don't truly understand what existence truly means. They don't understand the concept of duality. They don't understand how existence and non-existence are related. It doesn't even cross their mind that these two words are equal and opposite. Being equal and opposite, it means they're exactly the same thing. There's no difference between the two. One creates the other, and the other creates one. Existence creates non-existence. Non-existence creates existence. Left creates right. Right creates left. Movement creates non-movement. Non-movement creates movement. Before creates after. After creates before. Many creates one. One creates many. This is how duality works. Negative creates positive. Positive creates the negative. Life follows that pattern. There's no such thing as non-existence, yet non-existence exists. That's how life works. There's no such thing as existence, yet existence exists. This is how life works. All opposites are one. And that's it for today's podcast episode. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.